All right, Coach, I think we talked earlier this year when you shut out Connecticut, if there was any kind of reward for your players after a shutout. Anything change with that now that you have number 2?
Yeah, we give them a swift kick in the butt. No, it's just one of the things that they get to see. Their reward is when they get to push play and see how hard they play. And it just adds confidence and just continues to put energy in your bucket when it comes to you believing more, understanding more, and just you doing the things that you have to be able to do.
And what did you think was the biggest factor in producing that kind of consistent 4-quarter effort, that many takeaways, and that dominating of a performance?
If you pray hard, the Lord will reward you. No,
No disagreement here.
Yes. The one great thing about this game is you know that from preparation creates confidence, and confidence allows you to be able to play with some swag. The thing that we love is when you can anticipate things coming. Usually, success will find you. And we were very fortunate to be able to be in some positions where success found us. And to us, it wasn't a big surprise. We just want to make sure that we continue to keep building on it as we get ready to go into this next week.
Well, and speaking of this next week, it's a good thing you have some defensive confidence off a shutout, because maybe this is a team with the most weapons, compared to anybody you've seen this year. How do you break down Nevada's offense and the dangers they pose?
Well, the one thing that you see from them, they will stress you at every inch of the football field. When you look at the quarterback, Carson Strong, he can push the ball vertically. He can put the ball underneath in the hands of the athletes. So you have to make sure from a coverage standpoint that you're doing the things to where you're on body with those respective receivers, and you can do your job in being able to get them down to the ground. So it's going to be a great challenge and a great pose. But the one thing we love about being Bulldogs is you always have to be up for the challenge.
Coach, looking back at the last meeting and looking at the Nevada offense, they seem to target that kind of corner fade and just kind of throwing it up. How do you evaluate how that offense is coming in this week, and has the personnel changed or the schemes changed on how to prevent that sort of play?
No, you'll see some of the schematics are still the same, because when you can push the ball vertical down the athletes down the football field, that just makes your blood pressure rise a little bit. But what you have to be able to do is to make sure you can be on body with your coverage, be in positions to be able to make the plays you're supposed to make, and have a great deal of discipline and attention to details when you're at the point of attack. With respect to what we're thinking kind of coming in, that they're a great football team. They have evolved a little bit with respect to moving different players in different positions, when it came to the short COVID season last year. And they have probably one of the best athletic hybrid athlete tight ends that you're going to see on the football field in number 19.
And Paul kind of asked about it with the personnel, but specifically Torrey Horton, what do you see him bring? And do you think he maybe played up last year, given that he was kind of going against his hometown team?
Yes, but the one thing that you see is when you're fast, you can see that on film. And we know that he definitely has some speed. He did have some motivation. And what we did, we tried to take away some things from other players last year, and he really showed up and did a good job. I got a lot of respect for his play.
Coach, I think when you're talking about discipline and things like that, obviously, you're not going to completely shut down, a Nevada offense, but maybe you make things more difficult for them. Is that what you're talking about, like making tackles in space, things like that, and making them really earn it?
Yeah, and that's always the biggest thing. You got to make them earn it and not give them free plays. Where they have really excelled is being able to push the ball vertically down the football field and get explosive plays. And when you get chunk yards, and that's where Carson has been so good, being able to get the ball down the field to his athletes, and we got to make sure that we're great minimizing those opportunities.
And I know it's early in the week, but do you sense amongst your players, your defense, and the team as a whole that they're aware of how big this game is, when it comes to the conference race and things like that?
Well, the one thing that I think Coach DeBoer does a great job of is putting the emphasis on us being able to go 1-0 each week, and every game is a big game. When you're in as we would say, one of the best conferences out in the West, every game is a big game. It's always on the line, and you're only going to be as good as your last performance. So each person has to have themselves mentally and physically ready to go on Saturday.
Coach, was there one unit, defensive line, secondary, that you thought really played well against Wyoming. I know Leonard Payne, got to the quarterback a few times, and Elijah Gates seemed to come out with a lot of energy in that game and got a pick. So just what do you think of the play of those two players?
But from those guys, it's great to see Leonard Payne continuing to emerge. He's always showed up. The one thing we have to just continue to do with him is to make that be the consistent profile of him when you push play. The one thing that you will see is he is a booger bear to block. When you talk about having a stocking stuffer, I'm going to have him with me for Christmas because he makes it really, really hard to block. And when you have guys like that on the interior, it makes it so Kevin Atkins can also be able to get some interior plays as well. But having Elijah back, it's awesome because he's kind of like the calm within the storm. He's able to help drive the defense, make the plays he's supposed to make, and be able to be calm out on the football field during those given moments.
Good morning, Coach Inge. It feels like we've been talking a lot about Evan Williams throughout the season. He's had a lot of great games stringing together, and then it obviously culminated last Saturday with 2 interceptions. I'm just curious, where has Evan grown so far this season in terms of his ability to understand the playbook and become a better defender at safety? And where have you seen him grow since last year to this year?
Probably the biggest thing that not just Evan but everyone, you can tell that their growth has come just understanding the system, the structure, and the ability to be able to make their respective play. And the one thing that happened with Evan, for some of us, it was not a big surprise because he just made the plays he was supposed to make. Now, was it great when someone tips a pass, the ball is in the air, and he's got a chance to be able to pick it off? Absolutely. But the one thing that we try to tell every player on the football field, you just do your job and do your job better than anyone else on the football field, and watch success find you. And we've been the benefit of that. And Evan has obviously been in that position as well. And there are some things that defensively, there are some things that are designed for him to be able to make those given plays, and he's done those. And I think it's a great credit to him and his preparation when you can be at those point of attack plays, make those plays. And a lot of those point of attack plays are big plays as well. They're game-changing plays.
Kind of funny because before the game we talked about how do you practice turnovers in practice. We talked about tip drills, you talked about different drills you go through practice. So to have 5 turnovers after we had that talk, I'm just curious, how do you keep the momentum? How do you keep the high turnover rate going? Because it's important to have, I would assume, against Nevada, a good offense.
Well, we learned something from a great coach here on Friday, and he talked about the peaks and valleys that happen in football and in life. Well, we just experienced a peak in the game. For us, we still have a plan in place. Our profile in practice when it comes to practicing those takeaway drills, those won't change. When it comes to the things that we have to do in making contact and tackling and open field tackling, those things won't change. We just have to continue to keep our team, keep our defense of young men, just keep them on course. And usually when you stay on course, all those things continue to keep going. So now some of it is when you're playing against a great quarterback, that they know that what they saw in film has been very true, and some of the balls that may be thrown may not be in positions where you could be able to get some of those takeaways, but we still just try to keep our guys on course and doing the things that we typically do when it comes to us being able to be successful taking the ball away.
And my last question for me, at least, alludes to that great quarterback you talked about, Carson Strong. In your opinion, do you see him as a first-round talent, as many people are suggesting that he is?
From throwing the football, he's definitely one of the better kids that we've had a chance to see be able to throw. And I'm not a specialist when it comes to some of the NFL draft boards, but I would assume he's going to have a great chance to be able to play on Sunday. And if the draft was Thursday, I would love it.
Coach, their running backs have a reputation for being fast and physical, and they seem to pick up speed out of the shotgun handoffs. Just how does that specific run game complement their passing attack?
A lot. You know, they're a big, heavy zone running team, and they have 2 to 3 running backs that we call that are like Brutus. You know, they get downhill. You have to fit them up and make the tackle because they can run through arm tackles. They have the physical bodies to be able to get downhill and get them 3, 4, and 5 yards. And the scheme that they run, most defenses have been so pass-oriented, they've been able to get 5 yards a pop running the football. So we have to make sure that we're great being able to complement some of the run-pass orientations in our defensive structure from a game plan standpoint this week.
Coach, just following up on Carson Strong, he's throwing the ball 41 times a game, 4th most in the nation. Just what type of challenge does that present for you guys?
Hopefully he's got tendonitis here coming up this weekend. But from a challenge standpoint, when you throw the ball that much, the one thing that we want to make sure we can do is just still continue to apply the fundamentals that we have to be able to do from a defensive line standpoint, being able to push the pocket back, getting our hands up, trying to be able to get some tip balls in some of the low zones. Because as you all see, we have a philosophy here on defense, tip balls or pick balls. And the players who are getting to where they need to be, we're starting to see some of those things occur. Now, when you throw the ball into some of the outside zone areas, we have to be able to be great, being able to be on body, being able to make our play at the point of attack. And that's one of the things that we've already talked about from an emphasis standpoint coming into the week. At the point of attack, we got to be able to be in positions to be able to make our plays.
Do we have any more questions for Coach Inge?
Just the last one, Coach, for me. Just, we talk about Carson Strong and his NFL potential. Romeo Doubs, I'm sure you see him on film, and he's also a guy. I mean, what do you see for him and Cole Turner maybe as well? Like, are there multiple guys from this Nevada offense that we're going to be seeing on Sundays at some point?
In my opinion, I think all those gentlemen will have a chance to be able to have something involved in the NFL. It's just a matter of will they have any special teams involvement. But from a skill standpoint, they do the things that you want them to be able to do. They can stretch the field vertically. They're not afraid to come underneath and run their inside routes. They go after the ball. They attack it. They do all the things that you want a quote-unquote a good receiver to be able to do. And it's our job to make sure when we get to this game on Saturday that our defense shows that our offense has the best wide receivers on the football field.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Go Dogs.
I'll bring up Coach Grubb.
Good morning. Where are we starting over here?
Yeah, right here. So 17-0, mission accomplished with a W. What else did you see about the performance at Wyoming that feels like, hey, we did exactly what we were supposed to do?
0 turnovers. 0 turnovers. Took care of the ball. That game ended up having a little bit different personality than we probably anticipated to that degree. But watching how our defense was playing, I think it's one of the things that KALEN and I are always on the same page with is understanding when and how, playing team football and making sure you're taking care of the ball. And with, previous week's challenges in that department, we had to make sure that we could produce and just grind a little bit. And so you saw a lot more 2 tight end sets and some ability to run the ball and some really crowded defensive fronts and things like that. So having the ability to do that and get better at that offensively is a big step for us. So it might not have been as pretty as and exciting as some of our other games, but I know the guys were super fired up about getting the win there. It's a tough place to play and extremely disciplined, not only defense but team. So it was a fun win.
Last week you were talking about challenging the offensive line to be more physical. You hinted at changes. We saw the changes Saturday. How did you grade out that new look front there?
Yeah, it was. I thought our interior played really well. I thought our center and both guards, Braylon included, played solid. And Alex Akinbulu got dinged up a little bit and, came back in, but probably wasn't quite 100%. So I think he struggled a little bit. And I don't think Dante Bull played his best football game. So that was, a little bit disappointing on the edges. But I thought in the inside, I thought we really I thought we were physical. I thought Mosé played some of his better football. He got O-lineman of the week. And Braylon, the best part about Braylon was he didn't feel like the moment was too big at all. Like he was just in there playing ball. So that was awesome. And I think he's just going to keep getting better every week. So we're really fired up about him.
And you gave us a taste of number 5 taking shotgun snaps, and I think a lot of defensive coordinators felt some butterflies in their stomach when they saw that. Should we expect to see more of that?
Oh yeah, there's a lot more of that. That was just 1 of 5. So we got plenty of those, and those are things that you work not just now, not just on a weekly basis, but you get banked reps in the spring and fall camp of some of your specials and your wildcats and things like that. And when you got guys like Ronnie and Jalen that can, are really capable of that, and even Jordan Mims, we work him at that as well, then it can definitely add a different element to that.
Speaking of Jordan Mims, 13 carries for him, I think 78 yards. That was the most touches he got in 2 years. Just can you speak to kind of getting him the ball and what you're seeing when he has the rock?
Yeah, I thought Jordan had a great week and a half of practice too, and nobody on our offense is surprised when Seven does that. Just watching how physical he's become, though, I do think that that's one thing. People probably remember a lot more of Jordan's freshman and sophomore year than they have, probably the last year and a half or so. But, I think Jordan has really become a downhill physical runner, and you saw him breaking some tackles. That was something that I know Jordan really wanted to work on, is not getting the little one-tappers where he'd fall down on, a tripped heel and things like that. So improving his knee drive and just having great balance and vision and just really physical, square shoulders and still a lot of speed, still can get out in the open.
Last time these two teams met, I think Jake threw the ball 65 times, and I'm just curious, does that air attack that they present on their side of the ball kind of bait you into just kind of the shootout mentality?
No, it doesn't. One of the things we talked about in the offensive meeting on Sunday was, we don't want to live in extremes in general, whether that be 96 yards throwing the football or 490 throwing. The second you become one-dimensional, I think you're playing into another team's hand. At the same time, if you're really hot one way or another, whether it's running the football or throwing, you play with where the yards and the first downs and the ball control is coming from. So I think that's one of the beauties of our offense, is I do think we have the ability to do both. I think that we can be explosive running the football, and obviously people have to respect the pass as well.
Hey, Coach. I know you never want to learn a lesson in a loss, but could it be possible that maybe you look back on the Hawaii game in a way down the road and think, okay, there was a good lesson learned there about, maybe like you're saying, playing team football, realizing what your defense is doing and kind of taking game situation into account and maybe not forcing things as much, trying to make the big home run play all the time?
Of course. I think that victories and losses both present opportunities for guys to learn and understand what it takes to win a football game. So I credit our guys to, understanding when the game plan has to change and being able to adapt to it and just execute what's being called. So to see them be at such an extreme difference of what we normally do and do it pretty well, I think was really encouraging, because there was no concern about who's getting the ball or how many times or how many yards Jake threw for. It was just, let's make sure we're blocking for 20 and 7 and keep the ball moving forward and take care of it. And so I think that the guys absolutely learned from that. And I think that it made that win in Wyoming really sweet, no matter what the output was or production. It just, we had the ball 11 and a half minutes of the fourth quarter and took that game over as an offense. And you can take it over and throw for 450 yards and come back down the field at the Rose Bowl, or you can, grind it out like that against a really good rush defense. So that was a big growth moment for us for sure.
And it feels like, obviously the offense was getting a lot of the headlines early on in the season, but, a win like that, do you see it kind of like help team chemistry in a way that, the offense is pumping up the defense and the defense feels like, hey, we really brought it to the table in that win?
Yeah, you know what? It's good you say that, because I think our team has had that throughout the year, and even the competitive spirit that we had in spring and in fall camp, just seeing the guys, how they support each other and realize how talented both sides of the ball are, and I know KALEN and I were talking after the game and just thinking back to even 2017 and, how tough a win that was when we went out there and won the West in Wyoming. And it was a very similar football game, grind it out and defense playing good ball. And then there's going to be a game where you got to win 40-37, and just being able to rise to the occasion, anytime that you need to. And our guys know that it doesn't just happen, that you have to have yourself prepared, that when the moment comes that you're ready for that. And I feel like we will be. I do. I think that there's a lot of growth that's happened in the last 2 weeks, and I know the guys are crazy excited to see that stadium full and homecoming and a lot of things going on around the program, and I think it's going to be a fun environment.
as an offensive guy, you got to be excited just as a fan of football, to be in a game like this where you have that much offensive talent on both sides of the ball. And we heard Coach Inge say, hey, our goal is to show that the Fresno State wide receivers are the best receivers on the field. Do you kind of sense, that all these offensive skill guys are just can't wait to get out there and, go against that opposite team and kind of prove their worth out there?
Yeah, I think that's the case every week. It probably is. There's a good chance it's amplified because of the style of both offenses potentially. But I know our guys want to show out against anybody we play. Honestly, that they are some of the best units in the country. So it absolutely will be a ton of fun. They're a quality team, well coached, and really explosive. Good quarterback. So it'll be fun to duel it out.
Coach, you guys scored 17 points, off the turnovers on Saturday. When the defense is playing like that, what's the offense's mentality of, just being on the field and, not like kind of Scott said, not having to take the deep shots, but just grinding it out? When the defense is playing like that, is there a different change that you have as play calling goes?
Well, I think you have to look for your opportunities. If no matter who we're playing, I'm never going to shut it off and just say we're not going to try to put the football down the field. That would be foolish, and we still took some shots even late into the third quarter and early fourth quarter. So, but at the same time, being responsible with play calling and understanding the situation, and especially when you went up to that 17, where now you're talking about 2 touchdowns and a field goal, the game looks a little bit different. Then you have to move to a different section of your call sheet and realize, the tools that are in front of you to be able to grind out and hold on to the ball. So, and I thought we had a good plan with that. And at the end of the game, we had pretty specific course of action that we were taking, and the guys did a good job with that. We had a huge conversion, even after a delay of game on a 3rd and 8, on a play that was really designed for a different portion of the football game that we went to, and Ronnie and Jake executed that really, really well. And end up Ronnie just wasn't going to be denied on that one, on that waggle play. So that was pretty cool to see, because that 3rd and 8 was, I thought, critical. I think there was 4 minutes and 3 seconds left on the clock right before that play, and then that really just enacted the 4-minute offense, and they just kind of took over from there.
Good morning, Coach.
Morning.
We saw one of the many different offensive lineups that you were working on last week play out on the field. We saw Braylon Nelson at left guard and Mose move over to right guard.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the set lineup for now, or are you guys still working on an offensive line unit?
Yeah, no, those are the starters. I think Dante Atkins will play a role at both the tackle spots, if not start. So I know he'll be challenging the left tackle spot for sure. So we'll see which Dante will start this week. But I think Atkins, really got healthy late in the week. So he was feeling pretty good by game day. He just didn't have the banked reps during the week as far as the other guys. But I think he's playing as good, if not better, than the other 2 guys. So it'll be some combination of those tackles, but I don't see the inside 3 changing.
So that would mean for the 2nd straight season, you have a new freshman at left guard coming in to step in and starting. So how do you compare what Mose did last year to what Braylon's going to do this year? And especially coming into Bulldog Stadium, his first start at home, do you think that might kind of cause a little bit of nerves with Braylon? You mentioned how he was very even keeled at Wyoming, but can you say it's a different element at home?
Man, I don't know, because Braylon is a pretty unflappable kid. It's been one of the most impressive parts of his game. The athleticism and physicality that he brings on every snap is impressive, but just to see how he operates and Coach Inge was referring to the peaks and valleys, and I think that's, in general, sometimes what you can get with freshmen is riding highs and lows, and Braylon all through camp and all the way, honestly, to now, I think that's one of the reasons that he's in the spot he's in, is he's been able to just be a steady performer and continue to get better every week. So you never know, but I really have a ton of confidence in Braylon that it won't affect him.
Coach, a lot's been made of Nevada's offense. What can you tell us about their defense?
Yeah, they're well coached. I think Coach Ward does an outstanding job out there. Brian's a good football coach, and 99, I think, is, if not one of, the best defensive tackles in the league. 98 defensive end has great length and can present some problems. We're seeing more of number 13 since 6 was hurt at their roll down safety spot. And I think their corner 0 is a pretty good cover guy. I also think that they have a ton of experience. 10 of their 11 starters are seniors, and a lot of 5th-year guys. So they're going to have the ability to make changes in the game. When you are able to push the ball down the field, they'll probably have a different coverage scheme they can get to. If you're running the ball, they'll find a way to get an extra hat in the box. They'll be able to make the adjustments they need to make. So it'll be a good chess match back and forth, and finding ways to generate the right angles and get the ball down the field. But they play fast, they play hard, and I told the guys one of the things I noticed. I watched quite a bit of the football game on Saturday when we got back. Is there's a lot of glue on that team. I mean, when you watch them on the sideline, they're a united football team. They're celebrating each other's victories and wins, and handshaking on the sideline. They're excited for each other, and it's genuine. So you play a team like that, you got to be ready to go, because they're not going to come in here and just fall over because they're in Bulldog Stadium. They're going to be excited for the football game.
And as mentioned, they've had kind of a tendency to get into some shootouts based off of the way their offense plays. Is there a particular strength that shows up that is not maybe representative on the stat sheet for them?
Defensively,
Yeah.
you're saying? Yeah, I think they do have the ability to get more TFLs than people probably realize. I think that they do a good job of, when they need to use movement and pressure schemes, that they do get home. It's not necessarily who they are every down a pressure team, but I think they call it at the right time, and they keep you off balance a little bit with that. And it's coming from a multitude of spots as well. So they do a good job of keeping you guessing. I think they have a good game plan going into each week as far as changing up where that pressure is coming from, who it is, and how they're trying to get home.
Coach, looks like Nevada is as good as anyone in the country at getting to the quarterback. Just what can you tell us about the pass rush unit, and does that just mean Jake has to be even that much quicker in getting rid of the ball?
Well, I think they are good. They're very capable, and sometimes when you play teams, you think about what do they practice. So what's their spring ball and fall camp look like, right? Well, they play a team that flips the ball around, so they probably are pretty good pass rushers. Wyoming is probably pretty good against power, So these guys have a lot of experience rushing the passer, and they'll move guys around. You'll even see Big 99 Dom out there in a 5 technique on offensive tackles, and they do a good job of finding ways to get home, even with just 4. So I think our guys will be ready for that, and obviously you play a team like that does have a tendency to get home, and you got to be on time with the football, and that was one of the things I thought Jake got back to doing a really good job of at Wyoming, was making sure the ball was out of his hands and not taking sacks.
Any more questions for Coach Grubb? All right, thanks, Coach.
You bet.
Change that up just to see if you guys shine over there. Might think that someone might be watching and get a tip of what we're doing and lead them astray. So, morning. All right, go ahead, Paul.
What was the most satisfying element of this weekend for you?
I think just it being a full team win, pointing to things on every phase of the game that helped our team find a way to get a win at a place that I think is really tough. And we've talked about kind of the keys, right? The 5 turnovers versus the 0 turnovers, and then taking advantage of them and scoring 17 points off those turnovers. And so Cesar Silva, I thought, did a nice job kicking. I know he missed the field goal, the one there was that second quarter. But I thought, he did a great job again kicking the ball in the end zone. And then on kickoffs, and that field goal is especially coming on the heels of one you missed, and making it a 3-score game. He's a smart guy. He knows that, how important that one is, and he drilled it, from a spot that I thought that one was probably a tougher kick than the first one that he missed. So just thought it was a great overall team effort. It's just so much fun going to the locker room when everyone knows that they were a part of the victory. So it was very gratifying. And the buzz in this room, on Sunday was great to see. Probably as much buzz as we've had, all season long. So guys are doing a great job staying the course.
Looking at Nevada, I mean, it's personnel-wise, it's almost an identical team to what you played last week. The 2 deep on both sides of the ball. I mean, you barely have to change anything. but I know it was a kind of a bizarro week. You played them on last year where you guys were missing some key guys in some important spots, and the dominoes were falling. How much different does it feel this time to have some momentum, have them at home, homecoming, and everything going on this week?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I flipped on the film last night of our game and just started thinking about probably those were maybe the 3 longest weeks of my life. You know, just really everything we were dealing with leading up to that game. And honestly, that Thursday might have been the longest day of my life, just with the way things happened and trying to figure things out. And I mean, there was a thought that crossed our minds on can we even put a football team on the field with the way things were going that week. And then I also really thought about at halftime when it was a 24-20 game, thinking what we had overcome in the first half and to be in it, and maybe it being just one of those statement wins. It never turned out to be that, but I did see the fight that our team has now, beginning at those times, and we just weren't good enough. We just didn't have enough consistency and enough of the right guys on the football field. But I think there's a learning moments, and again, like I said, I look back on that film last night, and a lot of those thoughts come, and you're just that makes you much more excited about what we have this week and where we're at as a program now, and where we're at in the season and what this game all means.
Yeah, kind of touching off that, Coach. I know you want to go 1-0 every week and you preach 1-0 on every play, but do you get a sense from the players that this week might be a little bit bigger for what you're hoping to accomplish at the end of the season?
Yeah, the guys definitely understand the magnitude of this game. My hope is, and I've said it all season, is that every game is approached the same way at a high level, not at a low level, at an extremely high level. And, we use the words standard and then sustaining the standard and, being at that high level of intensity, emotion, execution, sustaining the high level. We talked about that a lot last week. Just the physicality of what Wyoming was going to bring. Can we sustain the high level of physicality for 4 quarters? Or is this going to be a 1-quarter thing? And so that's a big piece, for this week is sustaining a high level of preparation for Nevada, like it would be any other big game, because they're all big from here on out. So we already know where they were predicted to be at the beginning of the year. With the end of the conference and the final standings. And we've talked briefly about that, and we always have a big meeting on Tuesday mornings, and we'll talk about that more and really understand what it's going to take to win, a big game like this.
Coach Jay Norvell, I think, started at the same year that you came to Fresno State in 2017. Just looking at him and kind of how he coaches, how would you evaluate the style that he brings to his players? Yeah,
I've gotten to know Jay just a little bit. Back quite a few years ago when he was at other places and I was as well. We went and visited him, talked some ball and offense, and now obviously now that we've been in the same league, we converse and talk more for different reasons. But he's just done an impressive job there, and he's a great offensive mind, and you see that with what they're doing, in their program. But I just think he's done a great job, and Coach GRUBB alluded to the camaraderie you see in the program, how close they are. We think that's what we are. We really do. We think we're very strong and tight-knit, and so when you have those characteristics, you recognize very quickly the other teams that maybe have a little bit of that as well. And so that's a tribute to him, and just, his way of unifying his team and them having a goal, and he's been very consistent. His teams have been tough. Last year, obviously, we know what the outcome was, and I think back to being back here in 2018, and we played them there. That was a hard-fought game there, and I think we got them. We got the better end of the deal in 17, but in 18, that was a hard-fought game. So we know it's going to be, and we know it's going to take at least 4 quarters, maybe even more, to find a way to get this one. So our guys got to be ready to go.
And just a quick one, Coach INGE talked about the message of the peaks and the valleys from a great head coach in the week. Can you share who that head coach was that talked to the team?
Yeah, that was actually my former head coach in the the coach that I played for at the University of Falls, Bob Young, spoke at our chapel, which is always optional, but we had a great group of guys that I think felt that the love I have for him and how great of a coach he was, and he talked about that, and so that's who Coach Inge was referring to.
Coach, on paper, the stats indicate this game might be a shootout in the air. Is that what you're expecting, and do you expect Hayner's numbers to kind of jump up from the stat sheet from Wyoming?
Yeah, I definitely see why you feel that, and I mean that's what I think everyone would be led to believe. You just never know how these games work out. I would think there'd be some, with the balls being thrown up in the air by two amazing quarterbacks. Sometimes it's hard to stop. You just try to slow them down the best you can, and so I think you're spot on with what the expectation probably is. Jake's always going to be ready to go. The one thing about last week's game, I will say this. Jake didn't take near as many hits as he's taken in a couple of weeks. When you throw the ball 50, 60 times, you feel a little bit, you feel it a little bit more than you did maybe after a game like last week. And so I think there were some good things that happened from that game for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, you tend to think that this game would maybe be a little more high scoring game, not just because of what we do, but because of what they do as well.
Now, on Saturday, Fresno State is honoring Lorenzo Neal with his number being retired. Do you plan to integrate him with your practice and preparation this week? Is he going to make some guest appearances with the team?
I'm glad you asked. Yes. He's going to come talk to the team on Friday night. And so confirmed that this morning. And, I just, the first year was really hard trying to, last year, just keep the team going and moving forward. And even just seeing and meeting people was hard. And this spring and summer, it's been special getting to know Lorenzo, and we all know what he's done for this program, but, seeing a guy face to face and being at different events and functions and just spending time with him has been super special. I can see why he was as great as he was and still is to this day as a person. He was in this room at the beginning of the summer with our team and gave an amazing talk, a motivating talk, one that I know as the coaches we met yesterday, and we were like, we got to get him back in here because there was multiple pages of notes taken when he spoke to the team, and he really hit it home, and it was a lot of things like with toughness, but it was also just like, what are the recipes for success, and he just did an awesome job, and so we're going to bring him back on Friday night. One, to celebrate everything he's done, say thank you, pay recognition and tribute to him, but also just to let him motivate us and give us those words that I'm sure he'll spin in a little different way to get us going again for Saturday's game. So been awesome getting to know Lorenzo, though.
Coach, do you have a sense? I know he came and talked to the team, but before he talked to the team, I'm just curious. Do you think the team would have had a sense of Lorenzo Neal, his impact on football and on Fresno State? Or are they too young almost to remember that?
I think it was important. I shared his bio and talked a little bit about what I've learned in my time here about who Lorenzo Neal was. And, in the introduction, I made sure I spent some time discussing that. And I think then they got a better understanding of who he was and what he meant. And we want to continue to just emphasize the guys that made this program great. And it's not just one, it's been so many in different ways. And we'll make sure we hit on that again because we have a lot of new faces that weren't even here in the summer. All the freshmen that weren't here, so a couple transfers. And so having him back is going to be pretty special. And we want to continue to do that with our alumni. We've done that consistently, I think, especially in the last, 10, 11 months. The Zoom calls, we're done with some guys, but we want to get those guys face-to-face with our team at some point because that has a much bigger effect.
Do you remember him as a Bulldog? Do you remember watching the Freedom Bowl, or have you watched it since then at all?
Not as a Bulldog, I'll be honest, not as a Bulldog, and but I do when he was in the NFL. I remember watching and his name just being someone, that was just so common. So I wish I could say yes, but to really be honest, back in those times, I mean, TV wasn't as easy, to hear, and you weren't on Twitter and things like that. So where I lived and, this part of the country being different areas, certainly that was probably the case more than any.
You guys played a Lorenzo Neal type of game last week.
We did. He probably would have fit right in. Well, he would, not probably. He definitely would have fit in. So whoever's team he would have been on, I'm sure there would have been even a better impact. But yeah, I'm sure he was proud. I haven't asked him specifically, but I will now that you bring it up.
You mentioned Jake, and that was something that occurred to me too, that I don't remember him watching the game. I may have missed something, but taking a big hit in that game. Have you noticed a difference in him maybe physically this week? Is he feeling better than maybe the last few weeks?
Yeah, we haven't had a full, and we've been just really after every game trying to take as many precautions and getting him back on treatment plans, whether he gets hit a lot or not. It's just taking care of your body and maintaining it even in the areas where you're not sore. But just watching the film, that was a thought that I had, and that's one of the things you gain, from being a balanced team that can do both. And the pass rush doesn't come quite as strong when they're not sure if you're going to run or throw it, and so that balance. I just think that win was bigger than just getting a victory. I think there's a lot of things that we can get better at and learn from and understand, whether it's confidence in each side of the ball, whether it's just doing a better job of up front guys run blocking and just playing physical, to the defense gaining confidence on playing physical for 4 quarters. There's just a lot of things that I think that come from the game on Saturday that don't just show up in a box score or with a score being posted of 17-0.
And then finally for me, just the way that game played out on Saturday at Wyoming, I know that you maybe went in with a slightly different plan, but in a way, could it be beneficial that you maybe didn't almost have to show all your cards maybe with whatever you had in the passing game, with a possible shootout on the horizon this week?
Yeah, I think there's some of that always happens. Especially the fourth quarter, I think it was a little bit more just use some clock, especially the last 11 minutes or so, 12 minutes, and so there's always a little bit of that. I think everyone wants to see more points, but I think I give Coach GRUBB a lot of credit because there's always that want to as a coordinator. Did that for 20 years, right? Where man, you want to score more points, and you got the guys to do it, and you could do this and you could do that still, and they wouldn't expect this, but in the end, what matters is that you shrink the game, you shorten the game, you give yourself the best chance to win, and when that clock's running and he's your friend, it's your friend, finding ways to do that is important, and especially with us having established some things and physically, it wasn't like we were not trying to do some of those things throughout the course of the game. We had a good idea and kind of had our cleats in the dirt or I guess the turf, right? And had kind of really established that throughout the course of the game.
Hey, Coach, after the Hawaii loss, you had said that the team was really hurting, and then obviously the bye week. How important was the victory at Wyoming as far as the mental confidence of the guys, knowing where if they lost that game, you never know how the season will play out, but how much confidence did they gain, you think, in the Wyoming game mentally? After the hurt of the Hawaii loss, they seemed a lot more energetic and happy for this one.
Yeah, I think our team just probably more relief than anything just to get back on track with the win, we talk about the 24-hour rule, and we really tried hard, but, there's interviews that happen for over a week, after the loss. I mean, I'm not saying anything to you guys as far as your fault, but that's part of it, right? And so you keep being reminded, and it's instilled in the back of your mind. And so moving on from that, and what I guess I feel is we have a mature team that isn't going to be just not confident. I think we're going to be confident. The level of confidence, may change a little bit, but we're going to be a confident team. We got a mature group that isn't just going to go like this and all of a sudden drop off. And on the other hand, I think we have a mature enough team to where when we win a football game, we haven't just gone through the roof. I think the UCLA game was hard because of the opposite, right, of what happened to Hawaii. It constantly are reminded. It's constantly being talked about, and you're trying to get your focus back as soon as that interview is over, back on what lies ahead, and that's that's part of it. That's just part of it. And I think we have a mature enough team, and throughout the season you learn a lot of lessons from the good things and the bad things. And so I'm confident that we are in a good spot right now, and we'll have a great week of practice, and looking forward to Saturday.
Good afternoon, Coach. I guess it's 12:14 now, so it's good afternoon. But you're coming up on a 3-game stretch that's been talked about for a lot of the season. You got Nevada, San Diego, Boise. I know the mentality is going 1-0, but is it maybe do you talk to the team first? Why do you go 1-0 ahead of a 3-game stretch like this? And do you talk to the team about the importance of this 3-game stretch in terms of winning the West Division?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they understand. The guys understand how important this game is to winning the West Division. We have talked about that. I just think that over the years, I just know there's been so many other years. I mean, almost every year has a stretch of a schedule, whether it's 2 games, whether it's 3 games, whether it's 4 or more. Sometimes you've looked at a month and you're like, holy cow, if we get through October, or man, it's going to come down in November. It seems like there's always that in a schedule, especially when you're a team that has something that you feel you're going to be playing for. That's when those games seem even bigger. And so that's the fun part of it, is we're in a spot right now where those games are big. And I just know through the years of looking at it, that if you just look up the hill and you're right next to it, you look all the way to the top, it looks like a big hill. But if you just take and you just worry about getting to that next little rung or that next piece of the hill, it becomes a much easier task to accomplish. And the other part is you just try to really make sure the guys understand that part of the hill don't matter if we don't get to this part. And so I think just that's the way to accomplish. I'm just a firm believer in just worrying about the task at hand and controlling what you can control. Those teams might lose, and it might not be as big of a deal as it is right now. Let's look at it a different way. But we want to make sure we're not that team.
Let's look at the first rung in Nevada, and let's talk about the rivalry. I think Fresno State and Nevada kind of has an underrated rivalry when it comes to those 2 schools. Obviously, same division throughout, even in the WAC days. What can you say about the rivalry between these 2 schools, and do you think it'll play out between 2 high-powered offenses on Saturday night?
Yeah. That is one thing. You asked me about, do I remember Lorenzo Neal back when I was younger? But I do remember, in my days, probably in the last 20 years, seeing many games, and seeing snow blowing at Nevada games, and, it cold, and watching them on Friday or Saturday nights, after I've coached a game or before I'm going to coach one. And so I do remember feeling a little bit of that rivalry even before coming here and really understanding what it's all about. It's an important game, for a lot of different reasons. I mean, proximity, we're close, but obviously the main reason is we're part of the West Conference. So it's a big one, and it's been a big one for quite a few years.
Coach GRUBB shared a bit about Braylon Nelson. Could you also share just seeing him go from a recruit to what he did on Saturday in such a short time? Yeah, no, I'm happy to share about that. He's been, in a year when we didn't get to see guys in person. You felt like you knew, and you knew what you got, and just talking to him, Zoom calls and FaceTime calls and all that kind of stuff. You could see a little bit of the personality, but when he got here, it was just like, okay, check that one off the list. He's what we thought he was physically, and just so impressive. I mean, just he's been consistent. That's the thing. He's been so consistent, and just doesn't get too overly. I think what Coach used the word unflappable. That's a good word, because just nothing seems too overwhelming for him, too big. Whether it be winter or summer conditioning, when he got here, he just did the work. And, you throw him in a lineup, you throw him on the field, he just lined up and played. Didn't matter if it was right side or left side. We go through fall camp, and we knew it was going to be just a matter of time before he was going to be a guy for us. Was that time going to be this year? We knew a year from now, there's no question he's going to have to be a major part of what we are. And he just continued to develop through fall camp, and then
probably right away the first couple weeks. It's not someone you just throw to the fire. You'd like to let some of your veterans kind of get your feet off the ground. And he's just, again, taking so many reps with the twos and felt pretty comfortable. And I see the confidence the guys have in him around him. They really don't see him as a true freshman. They don't. I don't view him that way at all. And then he steps on the football field on Saturday and just really, there's some mistakes and things that he could do better. But, his effort, I think it was week 3 against Cal Poly, he got out there, and his effort was one of the efforts that we put up on the big screen, with the offense in particular, because it was there. Now, can that effort be sustained for an entire game is the question. And that was the challenge we put out there to him. And I would say he answered the call pretty well. And that's hard to do because it gets a little tougher when you're in there for 75 plays rather than just 8 or 10.
And looking at Nevada, I believe Carson Strong has been sacked 11 times the last 4 games. Is that kind of the one vulnerability he might be able to exploit in this one?
Yeah, and I think it's a strength for us. That's the way I look. I think that's a strength for us. We had 3 more this week. It wasn't for a lot of yards. He was getting back to the line of scrimmage, but that needs to always be a strength for us because it's a little bit of who we are. And, that would certainly help matters a lot more if we were getting a lot of pressure on him. And so having our guys healthy up front, getting a good push in the pocket, not just going to, have some minus plays, negative tackles for loss with sacks, but also just throwing off his rhythm and his timing and his confidence and what he's seeing downfield is always going to be important. That's important to us, right, from the other perspective when Jake's out there. So.
And I've seen some analytics that would suggest their pass defense might be a bit better than what the raw statistics say. What can you say about what you're anticipating from their pass D?
Yeah, I think they're really consistent. I think they're on the field a little bit more because their offense scores and does it pretty efficiently. But I know Coach Ward very well. Coached against him going back quite a few years, and I know no matter what he's teaching, it's going to be taught very well. It's going to be a very disciplined defense. It's going to be something that's very cohesive as far as the looks you're seeing and it being disguised well. And then the most important part is dialing it up at the right time and playing that game to keep your quarterback off balance, your team off balance. And so Coach Ward does a great job, and especially this part of the season now. He's been there last year and this year having that continuity. You can see them each and every week continuing to get better and, being stingier, not just in the pass game, but as a whole football team or as a defense.
And lastly, this being your first game at home in about a month and the last home game being a Friday, how critical are these last 3 home dates for recruiting and getting those key prospects on campus for the last stretch to signing day?
Yeah, no, it is important. And we've had some guys here, in the weeks earlier, some official visits and things like that. But it is important because I think our atmosphere is going to be really good, and getting the guys here is important. And then because of the timing and how quickly all of a sudden the middle of December creeps up on you and early signing day, no question to, make a good push here at the end to get the guys we need.
Any more questions for Coach DeBoer? All right. Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you guys.